You're listening to the Heart Lessons podcast with me, Sarah Rieke. Real women, real stories, real faith. Hi everyone, thank you so much for tuning in to the Heart Lessons podcast today. This is episode number 7. And my guest today is my friend Jordan. And much like myself, Jordan has twice walked the road of carrying to term a baby with a fatal diagnosis. And so her story is one of loss and heartache and pain. But as you will hear, it's also one of great faith and great hope in the good things that the Lord can still do in our lives after we've experienced such depth of grief. So Jordan she just has a wonderful testimony about the Lord's sustaining grace, and she has been such a great support to me. Her daughter Elsie was born and passed away the Christmas before Charlie passed away, and so she was just there for me when I walked through loss the second time. She was there to just answer my questions. She was there to support me anytime I just, felt like I needed someone to listen. I would just email her, and she would be so quick to email me back and say, "Oh, I hate this for you. I get it, and I am praying." And I knew she would, and it was just such a comfort to me. And I read this article one time that just makes me think of her every time, and it's about lost mothers, and it talks about how it's only the bravest ones that go back to help somebody else and enter into their grief and, bring them alongside and say, "I've been through this, I've walked through this, and I'm going to help you through it as well." And that's exactly what Jordan did for me, and it's just been invaluable, and I will never be able to explain what a gift her friendship has been to me, but it totally has. So Jordan, thank you so much. And Jordan's heart lesson that she shares at the end of this podcast is one that I'm still thinking about, one that really resonated in my heart, and I think it's going to do the same for you. It's real food for thought, and so I'm looking forward for you to hear what Jordan has to share. So Shepard's asleep, he's in bed?
He's in bed. He was a little bit stubborn getting to sleep. I was like, "You have to go to sleep. It's the one night I have something planned."
That's how it always works, isn't it? Like somehow they consent.
Yes, they can. They can. And Chris is working tonight, so we're in the middle of his little night shift stretch. So
okay.
Yeah. So I'm all alone.
So does he do a few nights in a row on a night shift, or?
We prefer it that way,
yeah.
So he tries. He normally works Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
Okay.
But occasionally they'll switch him around and he'll have to, switch back and forth. But whenever it's broken up like that, we lose more time together because he has to, transition his body back to day shift twice in the week instead of just once. I mean, you'd probably know what that's like, but...
Yeah, it's so funny. That's what Josh, his schedule a lot of times was Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday nights he tried to do. So then he wouldn't have to, because basically that third day, your first day off, you're just sleeping.
Oh, it's a wash, yeah.
You
can't do anything. And I'm always really excited on that last day, the Thursday that he wakes up, I'm like, "Oh my gosh, yes!" But then I realize, he has to sleep the whole day, so...
Yeah.
But it's okay, we're making it work. It's still a lot more time off than most people have.
Yeah, the extra, at least he's home, and then he gets 3 solid days off.
Right,
Good.
yeah.
That's good. So Shepard is walking?
He is. He's walking. He started walking, probably 3 weeks ago.
Oh.
3 or 4 weeks ago. And now he's he doesn't look like a baby anymore. He looks like a toddler.
Yeah, and sometimes they start losing their baby fat once they start moving.
Yes.
That kind of, it's like they get a neck or something.
I know, and I think what helps, too, is that the clothes he's wearing now, he's in, 24 months in 2T clothes, and so they just look more little boyish. They're not those cute little baby onesies anymore.
Yeah.
I still have some that fit him, but, they're just little boy shirts.
Little man shirts.
Yeah, and little athletic shorts. I'm like, "You're a baby. You're wearing athletic shorts." It's crazy.
Is he
but
one?
It's been really fun.
Is he one already?
No, he
No,
doesn't
oh.
turn 1 until April 28th.
Okay, so he's an early walker.
He's early, yeah. But he was actually a little bit late crawling.
Okay.
But as soon as he started crawling, he was like immediately trying to pull himself up.
Oh,
so
funny.
I don't know what that's all about, but he's growing so fast.
He's like, now that I can do this, let me see what's next.
He's like, wait a minute.
Did you have like a mommy moment when he started walking? Like, you can't be doing this.
Oh, for sure, because he was like, grabbing onto furniture and pulling himself around, and I was like, surely this isn't going to happen this soon, so I was like in denial, and sure enough, like within that same week, he just went for it.
Ugh.
And I posted that little video, I think on Facebook or Instagram or something, and I was like, is this happening? Like, did I just post a picture or like a video of my baby's first steps? Because I thought this wasn't supposed to happen for like 10 years.
Oh, that's too funny.
So, yeah, I definitely had a moment. I totally cried. Totally cried. And then you have the first, because like his first steps were to Chris. But like the first steps towards me, I lost my mind. I was like, this is outrageous. I can't believe it.
That's funny. I had a moment like that this week. Josh texted me. He and Micah were out getting milkshakes, and he texted me that Micah had a loose tooth. He has his first loose tooth.
Oh my gosh!
And I'm like, I forgot that happened. I'm like, but that's for big kids, not for you.
I know. Oh, that's crazy. Yeah. Oh my gosh! They just don't stop.
I know, it's crazy.
Oh wow!
Crazy. Well, talking about our babies, do you feel like losing your girls has changed your perspective on mothering Shepherd?
Oh my word, yes. I mean, it has changed every aspect.
Yeah.
I think like I don't know, like there's that, I mean, there's like that perspective shift that like everything is really like truly a gift. Like I have very few like mommy meltdown moments, which I'm grateful for, and I don't think they're a bad thing to have. Like I think they're totally normal, but I've heard people say like, I wish I could go back and just soak in more of the moments, but I feel like because of Ellie and Elsie, I couldn't say in the future I didn't soak in every single moment. Like, I will let my laundry go. Like, I will let my house get messy.
Yeah.
I just know that, like, it's such a gift. His life is such a gift to me. And I hope that doesn't fade away. Like, I know over time things do tend to normalize a little bit, but, man, that honestly is like one of the greatest gifts that they've given me, for sure.
Yeah, I agree. The perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah, the laundry is going to be there after they're in bed or after this book or whatever. But
exactly.
Yeah.
So,
with Ellie, she was your first daughter.
Yes.
And were you guys planning to get pregnant? Was she a surprise? How was that?
She wasn't, I wouldn't call her a surprise necessarily, but we weren't actively trying. We weren't being super careful. We knew, we knew that it was likely that we were going to be getting pregnant, if that makes sense. Like, we weren't like, let's start our family now, but
right.
We weren't trying hard not to get pregnant. So when I had my positive pregnancy test, I definitely was not surprised. I'll say that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then everything was pretty normal up until, was it 20 weeks for you as well? You went in for an ultrasound?
Yeah. So we were going to a birthing center with a midwife. And so the only ultrasound we had was like our initial one at like 8 weeks.
With the jelly bean. He saw the jelly bean.
Yeah, saw the little jelly bean and the little heartbeat. And then with the birthing center, you don't go back until your 20-week ultrasound, and you actually go to a different location to do that, and then they have their own little system of how they do it at birthing centers. But so yeah, from 8 weeks until 20, like, all was seemingly normal.
And you had pretty regular like pregnancy symptoms. Were you sick a lot or just?
Yeah, very normal. I was sick. I was growing as much as you don't, first pregnancy, your belly doesn't tend to pop out super early, but about, 12 to 14 weeks, I started showing a little bit. I was really, really sick. And then around probably, I think I felt her move for the first time around 14 or 15 weeks.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so pretty early. And yeah, just I was working full time, so I would be sick and I would have to run down the hall to the bathroom.
Oh,
it was
no.
horrible. But yeah, everything was super by the book.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then you went in for the 20 week to find out the gender.
Yes, so we went in for the 20 week, and actually the place that we went to, they don't have they have like the ultrasound specialist type person there, but they don't have a doctor, and they're not allowed to tell you anything.
Like officially diagnose you or something.
Yeah, they can't, like if something was wrong, they wouldn't necessarily be able to tell you that. Like they would just kind of say, okay, great, like these are her measurements, and we're going to send these off. Like they send all of them off to a radiologist to read.
Okay.
So we knew she was measuring a little bit small at our appointment, but I didn't think anything of it. I didn't think anything of it, literally, because nothing complicated was on my radar.
Right.
I didn't know anyone who's experienced a complicated pregnancy. Like I'd had some friends who had miscarriages, which was awful, but like I didn't suspect anything to be wrong.
Right.
Because she was measuring about 4 weeks behind.
Okay.
So I just thought, like, well, she's small,
Yeah, right.
8-week ultrasound, she was measuring 8 weeks. Yeah, I wasn't too worried about it. And then we got a call, like, I want to say 3 days later from our midwife, and I was at work. And actually, Chris was with me. It was the end of my work day, and he was swinging by to pick me up from work.
Okay.
And she called us, and she said, hey, I just want to let you know we just got your ultrasound pictures, and there's something wrong with your little girl. Mm. And I, couldn't even believe what I was hearing. But she went on to say, because I asked what, so in my mind, the first thing I thought of was autism, or, I often had heard, a little hole in the heart was kind of common, because she said it looks like there's something wrong with her heart.
Okay.
So I was obviously, super devastated, but I did not think, my mind did not go to, the life-threatening, department. Mm-hmm. So she said, let's schedule an appointment with the specialist at the hospital, and we'll have to transfer your care. So I couldn't go to the birthing center anymore, obviously. And she said, we'll have a follow-up ultrasound with them. They're, super great, and we'll figure out what's going on. So that was kind of where we left that conversation.
And then I think, didn't you have some, I feel like your diagnosis with her maybe kept changing or something, or they kept, you kept having to go back, and they kept either finding different things or things that weren't consistent with what they saw last time. So I think, didn't it take you quite a while to sort of reach, I guess you still don't have an official diagnosis, but it took a while to, pinpoint everything.
It did. So what happened was we went in for that 20-week, the follow-up, so I was probably 21 weeks at that point. Okay. And that was the nightmare ultrasound. Yeah. So they took a more detailed anatomy scan, and the doctor, threw out the word fetal diagnosis, and my mind was excuse me, what? Yeah. My mom was there, and Chris was there, obviously, and I just, I feel from that point on, it was kind of an out-of-body experience, because I didn't expect to hear that word fatal. I really was prepared, the whole, I guess the days leading up to this point, I was envisioning my child with medical needs, and, I was envisioning her, birthing her, and her going to the NICU and being hooked up to all these wires and stuff. like the possibility of her just like not living was like not anywhere on my radar. And so from that point forward, the appointments were like super hazy. And it took me a really long time to come to terms with that word, fatal diagnosis.
I mean, you don't want it to be true. Like, what?
No.
Nothing about you wants that to be the story. It's
absolutely. And at that point, I literally knew nobody. Like, I didn't know anyone who had been through something like that.
Yeah.
So they thought that it was trisomy 18 because of the way that her body was kind of positioned, and some of the, I guess, markers of trisomy 18, she really looked like she had. And so I went home and I researched it, and because I had seen her ultrasound pictures, and I was like, wow, this really looks like her. Like, this looks like what she might have. Mm-hmm. So they did the amniocentesis, but everything came back negative. Mm. And so it was a little bit, we started on this roller coaster of like, well, maybe it's not fatal, like maybe it is fatal, like we're not sure. Let's have you come back. So we ended up going to the doctor and having these horrible appointments and ultrasounds every other week.
Oh, wow.
And it was honestly just, we would leave every time just feeling empty.
Yeah.
Because the result was never good, whether they said like, we're not sure, or it's definitely fatal, or like, we don't expect her to live. It just was never encouraging in any way.
Yeah. That's so hard.
Yeah, it was awful.
And they were also not able to give you anything definite, so you didn't even have anything. You couldn't say, okay, well, this is what we can expect. You were kind of just, your ground kept shifting.
Yes, absolutely.
So that's hard.
Yeah.
So then, as you got closer to delivery, at what point did you realize what was going to happen? Or did you still maybe not even know, like, when you got to that point, to the...
Oh, man, it's such a hard thing. Like, we prayed for a miracle. You know, we believe that miracles are possible, and I held on to, like, I wanted to hold on to that hope while at the same time balancing that with, like, I need to prepare my heart if I have to say goodbye.
Yeah, and that's hard.
It is. It's so hard because you want to, like, pray with faith, and you want to, like, be this, like, poster child for, like, the miracle, but at the same time, like, you're like, I also have to live this reality of, like, what if, knowing that, like, it doesn't happen for everybody, and it's not, like, you just don't know.
Right.
And so I think I was prepared, as prepared as you can be, I should say. On the way to the hospital, it's going to sound like I'm exaggerating, but we literally drove into a rainbow. There was like a rainbow over where the hospital was, and so we were driving from one direction, Chris and I, and then I had a friend following me who was coming to be there for everything, and then my parents were driving from the other direction, and like my friend was calling me like, do you see this rainbow? And my parents were calling me like, do you see this rainbow? And I felt this crazy peace, and I was obviously devastated. I was heartbroken. I was scared, but there was this layer of like, okay, like no matter the outcome, like I'm gonna make it through this. Like I feel the presence of the Lord like so strongly, and it was honestly one of the craziest feelings I've ever felt, and everyone, that was with me felt it too. So I felt like there was this covering, as horrible as it was, and like as much as I hated every aspect of it, like I did feel peace.
That's that peace that surpasses understanding.
Yeah,
like, that's what it really feels like. It's like you don't even understand it yourself.
Exactly. That's why it's called that.
Yeah, so crazy. So did you carry Ellie to, like, was it at 36 weeks when she was delivered, or was it?
It was 38. Yeah.
38, okay.
I went in for a C-section, which was not what we had originally planned, but because they didn't know what it was, they basically told us, if she's going to survive, her best chances are going to be with a C-section. And obviously this was a far cry from my original, natural birthing center type situation. So I, at that point, clearly was, desperate, saying, like, if it gives her, a 0.1% greater chance of living, I'm going to do it. so yeah, we went in at 38 weeks and had a C-section.
Did you pick the date, or did they advise you like about when it should be?
Well, they told us to aim for that 38-week mark.
Okay.
But we didn't schedule it like super far in advance or anything. Like, I didn't have that date,
Mm-hmm.
which I'm glad, actually. I didn't have the date set for like months and months. Basically, we didn't decide that we were going to have this, like, go through with the C-section until like the 38th week.
Okay.
Because I just wasn't sure. There was a lot of things going on in my mind. I'm like, I don't know if this is the right decision. Like, and this was before the doctor told us what he told us, like if it could increase her chances of survival. He basically left it up to us because he said the prognosis is poor, you know, but you guys have to do what's right for you. Like, obviously a natural birth is going to be easier on your body and it's going to be easy to recover from.
Yeah.
But if she's going to live, that was kind of what pushed us over the edge, that comment. And so we decided, we felt in our heart, like, this is what we need to do to feel, I think, the most peace about, like, just, like, making decisions for her as her parent.
Yeah. And that you know you did everything you could in your power. Yeah.
Yes. So yeah, that's kind of how it happened. So actually, we talked to the doctor in the morning and had that conversation, and he was like, you know what? He's like, you're 38 weeks, and I think I was like 38 weeks in a few days. He's like, I'm going to call in, because he wasn't there.
Okay.
He's like, I'm going to call in, and if you want to go, we can schedule it, because they didn't want us to wait any longer if we were going the C-section route.
So you went in the morning, or was it later that day?
I went later that day. It was at night, so gosh, I think we left around 6 and we delivered that evening.
Okay. So you were in the OR, and what were you feeling? What were you thinking? I mean,
oh my gosh. Well,
it was surreal, I'm sure.
It was surreal. It really was. And there was still that really tangible, you know, peace that I was feeling, which was nice. But I mean, I am like not, like, I don't go to the doctor ever. Like, I'm not used to, like, the medical, like, hospital atmosphere. And so, like, it was like a, you know, the classic operating room, like you see, like, I'd only seen in the movies.
Yeah.
Just, like, super bright lights and, like, super sterile, and just there was extra people in our room because they had to have the NICU team there to assess Ellie, just in case, like, it was something, like, just in case she was going to live. So there was, like, all of these people around, and there was this heaviness because everyone, you know, was aware of the situation. But I managed to, like, make a joke with, like, the guy who's putting me on the like, operating table, and I was like, what? This is so weird and so surreal. But when they actually, you know, did, like, the numbing stuff, because I'm so medical.
I think that's what it's called. I think that's what it says on the bottle, probably.
When they actually numbed me and, like, laid me down, I had this grounding moment of, like, okay, like, I don't know if I'm ready for this. But it was, again, it was really like an out of body experience. It went smoothly. Like, there were no complications. And Chris was right there, like, at my face. And so that was super calming for me. And I think it got really difficult when I knew she was out of my belly. Because I couldn't see anything because I had the screen up. But I knew I could hear them talking about her. And they were over, like, at the NICU. I wanted them to, because they asked me, like, do you want us to bring her to you immediately? And I was like, no, I want you, because we don't know what this is. Like, I want her to be assessed just to be sure. So they had her over there, and oh my gosh, I have very, very bad memories of just hearing what they were doing. But but they stitched me back up and did everything, and then, you know, removed the screen, and they, like, kind of raised me up on the little bed thing, and the head of the NICU team came over and said, like, it had been, I think, like, maybe 5 minutes.
Okay.
She came over and said, like, hey, like, it's not looking good. You know, do you want us to bring her over? And I was like, yes, absolutely. So they brought her over, and I got to hold her, and oh my gosh, I was just so in love.
Yeah.
Oh, she was so beautiful. And teeny tiny. And gosh, like I had those such proud, motherly like feelings that you're supposed to have. Like I felt all of that. Like I could envision like what it would have been like if it were different, that kind of feeling.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I was like, oh my gosh, like this is it. Like I'm not going to see her again.
Yeah.
So I had to say hello
hard.
And I had to say goodbye, like all at the same time. And it was brutal. Like it was the worst. I mean, you know what it's like.
I mean, it's awful. Yeah. And it's so crazy to me that even with a baby that is so broken, you still have that sense of pride,
Yes.
like I felt that, and it's kind of inexplicable, but it makes me think of like, that's how God sees us.
Yes.
Like we are broken, we're pretty helpless, and God still looks on us with love and pride and
absolutely.
It's pretty amazing.
Yeah. Oh gosh, the amount that they have taught me about just God's love for us is incredible.
Yeah, it's amazing. So how long did you have to stay in the hospital after your C-section?
Yeah, that was kind of the hardest part, I think, of the whole thing was we stayed with Ellie in the recovery room. We kept her in our room with us for like probably 4 or 5 hours.
Okay.
Looking back, I wish it had been longer, but I guess like I can't say that because in the moment it was like I was time to say goodbye. But we had to stay for like 2 nights or 3 days.
Okay.
Is that right? No, I think we stayed for 3 nights. Because technically like that first night it was so late when I delivered her that they had to keep me like an extra night after that.
Okay.
And it was miserable. It was not fun. Because, on top of just the trauma of like the surgery, she wasn't with us and like we were just in an uncomfortable hospital room, like on an uncomfortable hospital bed. And I just honestly, I've never wanted to be home so badly in my life.
Yeah. I hear ya.
Yeah.
You just needed something familiar.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we were like an hour away from where we lived. So like our whole community, it was kind of like, I mean, an hour is not that far, but like we wanted to be within a few minutes of them so we could just like call them and tell them to come over. And so yeah, it was very difficult.
Yeah. And then you went home, and what did that feel like? Like what were your thoughts that were helping sustain you and just, I don't know. I mean, there is a level of falling apart, but like, I guess what was keeping you from completely falling apart?
I don't know. Other than to say the Lord in general, if I didn't know him, I don't know what I've done. Like there wasn't like during this particular, situation, there wasn't a verse that came to mind. Really, there wasn't a song that came to mind. I just had like the deep conviction and knowledge that like I'm going to be sustained somehow, and I have hope for my future. Like I know that I'm going to make this, and I don't know what that's going to look like necessarily, but I knew, like I could see, I guess, like the light at the end of the tunnel. And I really just believe that's because of, my relationship with the Lord at the time and how he had kind of built up that security within my heart, like throughout throughout my life, but then throughout the pregnancy.
Yeah. And then how much longer after Ellie was born did you start feeling like you really wanted to try to have another baby? Was it pretty soon?
Well, honestly, I wanted to try as soon as I could.
Yeah.
Like Chris was on a little bit of a different page, which was fine. But really the only thing holding me back was the healing from the C-section, because they really want you to wait at least 6 months, but most doctors recommend a year.
Oh, wow. Okay. I didn't realize that.
Yeah. Just to make sure, especially if you're going for a VBAC, like if you want to have a natural birth after a C-section, they want everything to be really nice and healed up so that, it lessens your chances of rupture. And and the doctors, thought the whole time and kept telling us, like, had to be an anomaly, like, because nothing's showing up in your tests. They were like, you should never have to worry about this again. Like, we've seen this happen. Like, it'll happen one time and it'll never happen again. And I took a lot of comfort in those words, like, so much, because it really helped with my just, like, hoping for the future and hoping, for good things for our family. I was like, well, like, yeah, I'm ready to go. Like, I need a baby.
Yeah.
I lost a baby. Like, my arms are empty and they hurt and my heart hurts. And I really wanted to, like, dive in again as soon as possible. But we ended up waiting. We waited 9 months.
Okay.
So Chris was in school at the time, and we let him, graduate, and then we actually moved to a new town because we felt like we needed to kind of get a fresh start.
Yeah.
And then we ended up getting pregnant the spring after Ellie was born in the summer. So we got pregnant that next spring.
Okay. When you found out you got pregnant for the second time, did you feel nervous?
Oh gosh, yes.
Yeah.
I wanted so badly to be excited, and I kept repeating to myself, like, what the doctor said, like, it's never gonna happen again, it's never gonna happen again. And I knew like the odds should have been in my favor. Like, I've done so much research at this point. I was like, this is, it's crazy for me to think that this is gonna be a repeat. So I thought to myself, like, okay, this is just the normal feelings that come, like, anytime anyone's, carrying after loss of any kind. Like, it's just, it's very normal. And it was normal. It was a normal level, I think, of fear and anxiousness. And I was, like, really, like, living for the ultrasounds to tell me that everything was okay.
Did you choose to have, like, more ultrasounds considering what happened with Ellie? Were you trying to maybe, give yourself a little bit more monitoring?
At first, yeah, I did. We weren't allowed to go back to, like, a birthing center type of place because we were now considered high risk.
Okay.
Because of Ellie and because of the C-section. And so we were at a hospital, and I had my normal 8-week ultrasound, and I had a 12-week ultrasound, and I had, like, I think even, like, a 16-week ultrasound. None of them are in depth, but needless to say, they were all
fine.
Looking normal. So I had, like, actually really, like, high hopes that, like, everything was fine. I mean, I bought some clothes, which I never got to do for Ellie.
Yeah.
And I didn't, like, set up a nursery or anything, but I did get a few things, and, like, I was like, living kind of the rainbow baby scenario.
Yeah. And then what happened? Walk me through that. How did you hear about this baby as well?
Yeah. So, because we were at a new hospital, they had our records on file, but, like, they had no reason to kind of, like, look back through them, at this point. Mm-hmm. They had them, in their system. But, and we had told them we had complications with our first, and they knew about it, but they didn't know, like, the details. And, you'll see, like, a different doctor. It was one of those hospital systems where you're not necessarily seeing the same doctor every week.
Okay.
So you might explain it to one doctor, but unless someone's read through your entire history, like, they don't really know. Mm-hmm. So we went in for a 20-week ultrasound, and we had, like, an army of people praying. Mm-hmm. And the doctor came in, and they were doing our ultrasound, and they kept asking, like, so when's your due date again? And I was like, at first, like, I didn't think anything of it. I'm like, like, December 23rd. And, she would do some more, like, looking around, and then she'd be like, okay, wait, when's your due date again? And I'm like, why are you asking me this? So, again, like, I didn't think much of it until she said, okay, the reason I'm asking is because she's measuring small, and oh my gosh, I can't even, like, both Chris and I just, we went into major, honestly, shock, like, just complete shock. And so I muttered something, like, I was staring straight forward, I'll never forget it, at the wall, but I wasn't really, like, fully there mentally. Yeah. And I muttered something like, this has happened before. Oh. Okay. And she said, like, wait, what? And I was like, this has happened before, like, and I don't even remember what else I said, but she went and got somebody else, and they came in, and they started telling us as if, like, this was kind of like a new situation to us. Like they started explaining like, so like we've been looking at your ultrasounds and your baby seems to be measuring, like there seems to be something really wrong. And so I was like, I went on to explain to them like this happened with our first, we lost our first, and I was just in complete shock.
Yeah. Like you couldn't believe those words are coming out of your mouth again.
No, I couldn't. And I honestly can't describe the heartache and the devastation of that appointment. But we ended up going down the hall to like talk to the genetic counselor, and she, at that point, like they had our history in hand, and so they asked us like tons of questions related to genetics and like our family histories and like all sorts of stuff, because they knew that our previous testing had all come back negative.
Right.
So honestly, it was just the same thing, and we left that appointment, and I really couldn't believe that it was happening again. It felt honestly like a horrible dream.
Yeah. And then I remember seeing it on Facebook and having like, I mean, like it doesn't compare to you as the person actually going through it, but like I felt like my stomach just like dropped. Like, I could not believe this was happening to you again. And I don't remember when you got Elsie's diagnosis, but I think it was shortly after Jocelyn was born. Is that true?
It was. What was the timing? I don't remember.
So she was born at the end of June in 2014.
She was born at the end of June.
Yeah.
So you're right, because our Elsie was diagnosed as having the same fatal condition, whatever that was, in August.
Okay, so very shortly after.
Yeah.
Because I remember we were still both pregnant at the same time and feeling kind of like, I don't know, we just kind of had like
was this thing, I remember it's like, oh my gosh, like we've both lost and we're pregnant with our rainbow babies, and like, oh gosh,
It was like a hopeful vibe.
That was in August, and we were due in December. So from the 20-week ultrasound on, I knew we didn't want to go to the doctor often.
Yeah.
Because it was so emotionally weird. Like, we knew the outcome, like, there wasn't, barring a miracle, like, we knew it was going to be the same. So we, honestly, this is probably, if anyone medical listens to this podcast, they're going to be upset, but we, like, didn't go back to the doctor at all. I went one time to do, like, some kind of, I don't even know. I went in one time to make sure everything was okay. But my husband's a nurse, and so he would always, like, take my vital signs, and I know my body really well. And so, like, I knew the signs to look for, like, for complications.
Yeah.
But yeah, we couldn't handle it. I just couldn't handle going back in.
Yeah, I don't blame you. I felt very similar. And like I feel like the medical people do not understand like the emotional journey that you're on. It's not just an ultrasound for you, not even close. Yeah,
exactly. And I felt like, they were having all of these big board meetings about us. And so I feel like I felt so much like we're just like this, freak case, like I've never, because they kept telling us, they were like, well, we found a similar situation to yours one time in India. And I'm like, this isn't helping me. Like, this doesn't make me feel better. Like, I don't want you to study me under a microscope. Like, I want you to hug me and tell me I'm going to be okay. Yeah. And I just knew, like, I'm not, no blame on them, because they are, like, they're a teaching hospital. They're like a research hospital. Like, they're trying to, further their knowledge of stuff like this, but I couldn't handle it emotionally. And we just decided, you know what, like, we are going to try to keep ourselves in a peaceful state as much as we can, like, throughout the end of the second half of this pregnancy. Yeah.
I know you told me that you felt like you had to mentally fight harder to keep yourself in like a good place.
I did.
What was that like? What did you have to, what was your strategy, I guess?
I think this is like a twofold. The reason why is obviously like my hope for future, for biological children was like I had no idea anymore if we were going to have biological children. So, like, whereas the first time around, it was like, okay, if I can just get through this, like, we're going to have this, we're going to have a family, like, we're going to be able to conceive, and it's going to be great, and we're going to be healthy, and, like, whatever. But this time around, I was mourning the impending loss of my second child, but I was also mourning the loss of biological motherhood.
Yeah.
And it just threw me for a loop, because I was like, this is not, like, ever since I was very, very young, like, all I've wanted to be is a mother. And I have always wanted to adopt, and I'm like, definitely open to, like, all the forms of motherhood.
Yeah.
But I never thought that this was going to be my story. And so there was that component of it, and then there was just the natural, like, I know what this is going to be like kind of thing. Like, with Ellie, I had no way of, like, I don't know, like, it was almost easier in retrospect to think about Ellie. Like, I didn't know what was going to happen and what it was going to be like to say goodbye, but now that I knew that pain, like, trying to prepare my heart for that was, like, just a huge battle. But, you know, we belonged to an amazing church who had weekly worship nights, and that was, like, oh my gosh, it was like my haven. We would go on Wednesday nights, and for some reason, like, with Ellie, it was a lot easier for me to read scripture, and it was a little bit harder for me to enter into worship. But with Elsie, I had a pretty easy time entering into worship, and I didn't have a very easy time reading scripture.
Okay.
So it was like, I felt like the Lord provided, like, this opportunity for me. I mean, obviously, like, not, like, in worshiping him, like, I'm going to him, and I'm not trying to make it about me, like, but he really, like, led us to this church and led us to this community of people who really were about, like, coming to the Lord in worship with all of our issues and all of our, you know, sorrow and all of our joy, just like coming before him and, like, singing to him and praising him. And those were the nights I feel like they sustained me for the week.
Yeah.
I would try to worship and read, and I was trying to stay on top of that. I really was, but it was difficult to do on my own. And the same goes for Chris. He would say the same thing. So I'm thankful for those nights.
Do you feel like you and Chris handled Elsie differently? Like, did you process differently?
We did process differently. I don't know exactly how to explain the difference, but I mean, again, it was just that, like, trying to prepare ourselves more this time around. The first time, you know, there's that level of shock, and so I think a lot of our processing was like, okay, is this really happening? Like, is this real? Is she going to live? Like, what is this? And the second time around, it was more of, like, I think survival mode would be how I would describe how we processed the second time. Was like, we have to survive this. We have to survive this. Like, how are we going to survive this? And that was more of my mindset.
Do you think you guys process differently as, like, man versus woman? I know that's like a weird way to say it, but, you know, like, male versus female processing differently. Did you guys encounter that with your girls?
You know, I think we were really united in the way that we processed during our pregnancies. We had a big difference in how we processed after their deaths. So our grieving process was a lot different. But during it, I honestly just think that the Lord drew us so close together, which was incredibly helpful. Just to be able to level with each other. There weren't any moments I can think of that we were, like, divided in how we were dealing with everything. Obviously, we didn't deal with every component of it perfectly, clearly. How could you? But our differences really came in afterwards.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Elsie's name, you had a pretty sweet story for how you came up with her name.
Yeah. So before we found out about Elsie's diagnosis, Chris went to one of the worship nights, actually, without me. I wasn't feeling well. And so he went by himself. And at that point, like, I had written down some names that I just liked. And they had cool meanings. Like, but they weren't anything I would say profound, or, like, they didn't fall upon me in some crazy way. But so this is before we knew anything was wrong. Chris went to worship, and as he was worshiping, he felt like he heard a name from the Lord that was to be our daughter's name. And so he came home, and he was like, hey, okay, he's like, this might not be, like, I don't know. He's like, but I heard this name, and I don't know if you're going to like it because it sounds a little bit like Ellie's name, but he's like, I don't know. I just want to know what you think. And so he hadn't, like, looked it up or anything. He just heard it. And so he sits down with me. He said, okay, the name I heard is Elsie. And so my first thought is, like, I love it because, for one, I love that it's connected to Ellie's name. Like,
Yeah,
I love that
sweet.
it kind of has that in it, but it is different. But then, like, at the same time, I was like, okay, like, I was thinking this, I didn't say this out loud, but I was like, okay, what if this has, like, some weird meaning? Chris is gonna feel so bad that he like, heard this name that means, like, I don't know, like, building.
Right. Like muddy water or something.
Yeah. Like street lamp, like, I don't know. And so I was like, okay, like, I love the name. I said, let's look it up together. And so I didn't know anyone named Elsie, and so I looked it up, and the meaning popped up, and I just started, like, bawling, crying, and because it said the meaning of Elsie is my God is abundant. And I was like, what? That's insane. Like, you know, and at this point, obviously now, like, post knowing about her diagnosis, it has, I think, even a greater and more sorrowful meaning. But beforehand, it had this other meaning too. And it, you know, the lens that I saw the name through before I knew was like, yes, he is abundant. Like, he is abundantly pouring out this amazing blessing upon us, which still is true. She's still a blessing to me. But once we found out, the meaning turned in my heart to, my God is abundant, therefore he is going to get me through this. And so in that sense, I felt like it was even more perfect after we found out.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah, thank you.
So, and Elsie, she did not have to come via C-section. You were able to have a VBAC. So, and you went into labor right after Christmas, right? Or maybe it was Christmas night.
Christmas night, yeah. I was so excited to try for a VBAC because I did not want to deal with C-section recovery again.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to, I really wanted to labor with her because, like, the C-section was so fast, and I really wanted to have that connection with her and be able to, like, have, you know, this an elongated, if this was the only time I was going to have with her, like, I wanted it to be, you know, more of a process. And we went to a friend's house on Christmas because we couldn't travel to see our families because I was so pregnant. Good thing we did it. But I honestly think the reason I went into labor with her that night is because we laughed so hard all day long. We were with our best friends, and we just, like, played games all day with their family, and, like, there was all these people there, and we just had a blast. And so I felt very tired when we got home, and I thought to myself, like, I wonder if, like, all of that laughing is going to cause something to happen.
That's too funny.
I know. So we got home on Christmas night at, like, 10:30. I went to bed at 11, and my water broke at 1.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it worked, apparently. So yeah, we went into the hospital. I stayed at home during the night. I had some contractions, and I just kind of waited it out. And then we ended up heading to the hospital in the morning around 11, the day after Christmas.
So it was about a 12-hour, like, at-home kind of laboring process.
Yeah, and I was kind of falling in and out of sleep. It wasn't anything too intense. It gave, you know, my parents time to drive down, and, you know, we could let everyone know. But my labor with her was more intense than I thought it would be because it went on for so long. Like, I was in labor for 36 hours total. And like 30 of those, like, I went natural as long as I could until they had to start giving me Pitocin because of Elsie's size. I wasn't progressing because her head wasn't pushing hard enough. So I was getting stuck at, like, between 3 and 5 centimeters dilated, but my contractions were super strong, like, trying to get her, you know, down. And so I wanted to go as long as I could. I was being really stubborn. The doctors were like, okay, like, we'll let you go, because they knew the prognosis obviously was not good, so they weren't as concerned with, like, normally at that point they would have put me on Pitocin a long time prior, for the sake of the baby. But they were like, we just want you to be able to do, you know, what you want, since, you know, it's not gonna end with her, you know, living, which is very sad. But also, I was thankful that they
understood and they were flexible.
Understood.
Yeah, that's nice.
So after 30 hours, they gave me some Pitocin, and that was brutal. And eventually, I think 4 hours after the Pitocin, I caved and got an epidural, because I couldn't handle. The Pitocin contractions were crazy.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. I've heard that they're just like, unbearable.
Yeah. So yeah, I got to, she came into the world, and I got to hold her right away, which, you know, I missed that with Ellie.
Yeah.
You know, for good reason, but I knew this time I wanted to have all the time with her. So, she came straight to my chest, and again, she lived for just a few minutes, and we held her, and we actually kept her overnight.
Okay.
Chris and I really, you know, we missed Ellie so much, and we kept saying, like, leading up to it, that we wanted more time with her, and that, like, we would give anything to have more time with Ellie.
Yeah.
So this time we were like, let's just keep her and be with her.
Yeah. And so how long were you in the hospital before you got to go home after Elsie?
With Elsie, I only had to stay one night, which was amazing. Leaving was really hard.
Yeah.
You know, because we had her with us, and so we were leaving the hospital, but we were also leaving her, and like leaving her body. I knew she wasn't there, but it was just this, you know, leaving the hospital again with empty arms. You know, that feeling, it's not easy no matter what. So then we got to go home and start the grieving process all over again.
Yeah. Was it similar? Did it feel like, oh, I've done this before?
There was this, like, almost, I would say, haunting sort of familiarity to it.
Yeah.
Like, you're like, oh, I didn't expect to feel this ever again.
Yeah.
And there were a lot of things we did differently with Elsie because of that. Like, we did her funeral differently. We did her just the way we handled her body differently. We basically did everything different because we couldn't handle, because like, part of me was like, I would love to be able to take her and bury her with Ellie, but, like, I couldn't stand the thought of driving back to that place and, you know, lowering another child into the ground. Like, I couldn't do it.
That's so funny. You know, we did the same thing with Evie and Charlie. We did something totally different because the funeral was beautiful for what it was, but Josh and I both felt like we cannot do that again.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally get that. Honestly, it's just not. I think no matter how you handle it, whether it's the same or different, like, it's okay, because you just can't foresee how you're gonna feel.
Yeah.
So it was bad. It was really bad, and I dealt with a lot more depression after Elsie than Ellie, because, again, I was dealing with that, you know, the loss of biological motherhood at the same time, and it was really, really hard. And there was also this aspect of it, like, we moved to this new place, like, to have this new start, and then the same thing happened all over again. And I kept thinking, like, okay, what now? You know, what, like, this was supposed to be our, you know,
like your dream
redemption.
Home.
Yeah. So, it was really, really rough.
Yeah. I know when I was pregnant with Charlie, you sent me this necklace that you made.
Yeah,
it had the verse, Lamentations, I think it's 3:23, that God's mercies are new every morning, and you wrote a note that said, when I was pregnant, or maybe it was after Elsie passed away, you would pray, like, Lord, your mercies better be new every morning, because if not, like...
I did say that. I was like, this better be true, because if it's not true, like, I'm just going to keel over.
Yeah.
So I did. I felt that way a lot. I was not... I always wanted to be the person that, like, could just say these verses and, like, know that they're true, but, like, I did not know that they were true. I was, like, living on the, you know, hour by hour sort of, you know,
But
sort of thing.
there's
So
faith in that too, you know? I
yeah,
mean, like,
totally,
strength to
totally.
strength. Yeah, sometimes that's what you have to do.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
yeah. Did you feel like, I mean, I don't think it was very long after Elsie passed away that you started the adoption process. Is that true?
It's true. It was 2 weeks later.
Okay,
actually.
wow. Yeah, that's pretty fast.
Yeah, my sweet husband, let me just tell you, he, in all honesty, probably wasn't all the way ready to jump in there yet.
Okay.
He was, we were grieving differently. Like I said, I was like, basically my grieving process was as follows. I was like, somebody better bring me a child. I don't care whose it is. Like, I will hold my friend's child, like, for hours at a time if I need to, but, like, ideally, I would like to be able to call this child my own.
Yeah.
Like, I was full out, just, like, desperation. And I think, the verse that came to mind a lot, after Elsie passed away was that verse about, I think it's in Proverbs, actually, like, hope deferred makes the heart sick.
Okay, yeah.
But a longing fulfilled is a tree of life. And I knew that, like, if I didn't have a child anytime soon, I knew I would be okay. However,
yeah.
I just felt like, I was like, how long am I going to be here with empty arms? Like, I know that the Lord has children in my, in my future. Like, I know that I'm meant to be a mother. And, like, if our story was different and it was, like, 2 years before that happened, like, fine. But I obviously, like, the Lord said, yes, here he is.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, we got licensed. After 2 weeks, we had the easiest adoption process ever.
Oh, that's awesome.
It was freakishly easy. Like, everyone I talked to that has adopted, like, and been through the process is like, I don't even understand. So we got licensed quickly, no hiccups, like, very smooth process. And then one of my fears related to adoption was getting matched, with a birth mom who was like 5 or 6 months pregnant, which is, the norm, at least for private domestic adoption.
Okay.
And then, like, having to wait those pregnancy months of hers doing the same kind of, like, doubting and, like, wondering if she can change her mind and, like, just more sleepless nights related to that kind of anxiety, a different kind of anxiety. But Shepherd, our son, he was born 4 months after Elsie, which was very fast, and we didn't know about him, which was great because they called us and they said, hey, there's a baby, he's already born.
Wow.
He's in Alabama. Do you guys want to present for him, which, just means they show your profile to the birth mom along with a bunch of others, and she kind of decides who she wants to give her child to. Yeah. Which is insane, and I'm just so grateful. So she chose us, and one of the big reasons she chose us was because of Ellie and Elsie. So it's really neat for me to know that, like, my daughters, even though they're not here, played a part in bringing my son home.
Yeah, that's amazing.
We literally had a week to prepare, and we drove on down to Alabama, and we picked him up, and then bam, like, we had a son.
That's so great. So it was only 4 months after Elsie passed away?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Just 4 months. Mm-hmm.
Which is a long time. It might feel like a long time, but in the grand scheme of things. It felt like 10 years,
but I knew we were so fortunate. Like, because once you start the adoption process, you start to connect with other people who are also adopting, and we were walking alongside people now who have been waiting for 8 months, a year, 2 years, and actually it was really beautiful because the day that we picked him up was the day of my older sister's birthday. Okay. And she's no longer with us. My parents had her first, and she passed away in a car accident. Oh. And so, like, there was this crazy redemption of a day that, for so long was just full of pain. And we were all driving, like my parents included, to pick up, my adopted son that very same day. Wow. And then the following day was Mother's Day. So I got to spend Mother's Day holding my baby.
Oh, my word.
Yeah.
That's
it was
unbelievable.
Insane. Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, how much has Shepherd helped you with, losing your girls and now you have Shepherd? And not that he replaces them, but I
Yeah.
mean, like
Yeah.
that's gotta be, it's gotta feel just
Yeah.
remarkable.
Oh gosh, he has been tremendous in the healing process. He, for one, you're just busy,
Right.
You're not doing your normal non-baby things, like thinking about how you wish you were doing them. You're actually taking care of a child, which is a lot of work. And there's, the busyness associated with that just, like, I think helps. And then, like, what really, honestly, it just was the deepest feeling of, like, this is the longing fulfilled. Like, this is what it feels like to have a dream that has been just crushed, twice, be redeemed. Like, it was just this incredible feeling. And still to this day, I mean, there's obviously hard days, there's hard hours, there's hard weeks. And there's always that, like, layer of mourning the girls and wishing they were here, and especially on, like, important days and birthdays and holidays. But man, yeah, he's just been the greatest gift.
He has really great cheeks. Every time I see a picture of him, I just think, like, you must nibble those cheeks all day long.
He thinks he doesn't even respond to kisses anymore because he thinks they're so normal. Like, he probably gets 500 kisses a day, and he's like, oh, whatever. Like, I'll just go about doing my stuff. Because, yeah, his cheeks are incredible, and his hair is incredible too.
And his lips.
Everything about him is incredible.
He has good lips too. Like, every time I see his pictures, I think, he must love.
He's a handsome fellow.
So sweet.
Yeah.
So looking back on, I guess, so Ellie passed away. It was 2013, summer of 2013.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So looking back on the last, I guess, almost 3 years, what do you feel like the Lord has been teaching you? Like, what would you say your heart lesson has been throughout your journey?
Oh, man. Yeah. Gosh. If I had to say one thing, there's this phrase that keeps coming to my heart, like, when I think about just the past few years, and that's the phrase, if you let it, because I really felt like throughout this whole process, like, I could easily see myself letting both of these situations just wreck me, like, wreck my future, wreck my marriage. Like, you can see how, like, I mean, the norm for people who have lost children, I would say probably I'm thinking it must be the norm for non-believers who lose children. Like, they'll develop mental illnesses, like, at an increased rate. Divorce at an increased rate. Like, it can just wreak havoc on your whole life if you let it. But on the flip side, like, I know that if I let it, the Lord will use it for good things. And that's, I mean, like, what other choice do I have? Like, I can choose to sit back, not deal with it, push it aside, and just, kind of shrivel away. Or I can say, like, you know what, this is painful, and it hurts to think about it, but I know that there has to be some sort of good that the Lord can pull out of it. And so a verse that kept coming to mind, actually, it started with when I was pregnant with Ellie, was from Psalm 118, and it's the verse that says, I will not die, but I will live, and I'll declare the works of the Lord. And I just, like, that's really been my, life verse, really, in the past few years, because there were moments throughout the past, few years that I felt like I could die from this. And I don't mean physically die, but, like, I could, like, my dreams could die and my passions could die, because it does. You could, what it's like. I mean, you really feel like there's this weight that, like, you have to choose what to do with it. It,
like, drains your energy. It like, drains your life energy. Yes,
that's a great way to put it. But I that started to be my cry. Like, I will not die. I will not die, even when I didn't believe it.
Yeah.
Just saying, like, I will not die. I'm going to live, and I'm going to declare the good works of the Lord. In that verse, the end of it, like, you have to assume they're going to be the good works, you know?
Yeah.
Like, the good works are coming. I know they are, because he's faithful. And yeah, so like there is this choice. I think it's a constant choice, and sometimes I have to make it every day, and sometimes, I'm okay. But it's the choice to let him use it for something good, and to declare that he is good, and he's still working, and he's still doing good things in my life.
Yeah, that's a great perspective.
Well, I appreciate you giving me this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Jordan. This has been
You're
awesome.
welcome. Yeah, it's been great. All right, I'll talk to you soon.
If you let it. Honestly, I'm still thinking about that phrase and the power that we have to control our attitude toward a situation. And the fact that if we let it, our circumstances can overtake us and have some really negative consequences. But on the other side, if we let it, we can be used by God even in the midst of those painful circumstances. And Jordan is a wonderful testimony to that fact. And thank you for those wise words, Jordan, if we let it. If you would like to connect with Jordan and find out a little bit more about her story, you can visit her at her blog, tatesatsea.blogspot.com. And you can also find her Etsy shop, Tate's at Sea, and her Instagram, Tate's at Sea. And I wanted to take a few minutes now to help you figure out how to post a review on the podcast if you would like to do that. It's actually just a really great way to get word out about the podcast, and I know some people have had a little bit of trouble figuring it out. So here's what you can do. Open the podcast app. There'll be a search glass in the bottom right-hand corner, and go ahead and type Heart Lessons Podcast. In purple letters at the top, it'll say there'll be an option for podcast, and go ahead and hit that. Select the Heart Lessons podcast that comes up at the top. Hit review, and then about 3/4 down that page, it'll say write a review, and it'll be in purple letters. And then you'll go ahead and type in your iTunes password, and you'll be able to write a review. So, not too complicated, but I know it's a little bit confusing. So, thank you for those of you who have left a review, and for those of you who plan to. I really appreciate it. And don't forget to visit my blog, lifeandgrace.com, for show notes about the podcast today. And there'll be links for connecting with Jordan, and some links on, related blog posts and the scriptures that we mentioned. So don't forget to visit lifeandgrace.com for a little more information on the show today. And thank you all so much for listening, and I look forward to being here again with you next week. Bye.